thinking about what you're saying or what you're thinking or how that's coming across, it can be perceived as really negative, even though it's not meant to be. And
Correct.
so we were talking about that with my grandma. My grandma used to do that all the time. And I had a major perception, I think a lot of us had this perception that she had a really negative attitude about certain things. And I think like the more that I'm seeing what I'm doing and what my mom is doing, the more I'm realizing, I don't think any of us are intentionally being negative. It's just become this habit
Right.
of
Of habit of space filling, silence filling.
this, blah, blah, let me commentate this, let me throw out my opinion on that.
Right.
And so one of the things that I've been doing, in addition to the am I being not negative, I'm kind of stopping myself and going, okay, what am I saying right now in my head, or what am I saying out loud? Is it really not negative? Is there a negative connotation to what I'm saying, even if it's not intended? And do I need to even be saying or thinking this right now? Is it necessary to add commentary to this particular moment?
Brilliant.
So that's
Absolutely
been
brilliant.
a really interesting
Yeah.
exercise, and I'm
Yeah.
catching myself a lot, especially being negative toward myself when I'm not necessarily intending to be, but
Yeah.
when I stop and think about it, I'm like, okay, well, I'm not really being positive. I'm not being not negative. So, that I need to adjust something there. So that's been a really
Wow.
interesting exercise.
That's really magical. Erica, as you're saying this, one thing keeps coming up for me. I'm thinking, the silence filling. Could this
Mhm.
be because of a lack of self-trust?
Probably. Yeah, absolutely.
Connected and related to it. Now, obviously, self-confidence comes into it,
Right.
but really, self-confidence and self-trust are very intimately related, right? We can lack self-confidence, but have self-trust, right? And
True.
the uncomfortableness is not necessarily a confidence thing. Yes, it likely is also, but to me, it just seems more like you don't trust yourself and you're not trusting others. So it transfers out and it connects out. And that when you can't be in the silence and you're uncomfortable, it's not a confidence issue. That's a self-trust issue to me, at any rate, right? Because you're not trusting yourself to be okay. You're not trusting that things will be okay. And that by implication saying stuff that does come out negative too, it's the stuff that's coming out inside. And when we are essentially um, denigrating ourselves, not denigrating but not appreciating, when we are being in some way negative towards ourselves, not in a direct way but an indirect way, that's usually an indication that there's not self-trust.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Because you're not being nasty to yourself or to others. You weren't being deliberately mean or rude or denigrating or derogatory or anything like that, right? No, it's just this inadvertentness of it. And again, like I said, if you think about it in the context of self-trust, it starts to make more sense. Yeah, Beena, what do you feel?
Yes, but filling that awkward silent moments, and it is kind of our cultural and societal training that we feel obliged to fill that, we feel obliged to say that, and this obligation, unsaid, untold obligation. But it is obvious for us, oh, we need to say that. Like when some people are, like in my family, if other people are communicating about something, and I'm just sitting there, I'm just feeling good that yes, I am with my family, and they are discussing things, and I'm just enjoying their presence. I don't need to have any connection with those, uh, with that particular conversation. I don't want to participate in that. Even not deliberately, but just not thinking about that.
Right.
But it feels like, oh, and then they will ask, oh, why you are not participating in that?
Right.
Is it something wrong? We are doing something. These are the awkward silent moment. And also sometimes in situation where other people, like, okay, we are on Zoom sessions, and still you asked Donna, mostly it happens with Donna, and still ask Donna, okay, Donna, and Donna is silent. and we all feel like, oh, okay, and it's like Donna, and Donna again, no, nothing, no response. And we feel that. In the beginning I was feeling that, and I was trying to say, okay, is she listening or not? I feel that, oh, I feel that urge that I need to say something, because he's asking and she's not responding or
Right.
what. But now I feel okay, now I'm chill, okay, because we know Donna
Love.
and we know Sil, so it's all good. And it is actually training my mind
Yeah.
to be positive and remain at peace, at
Mhm.
calm, when something is happening
That's
around. So
good.
I'm not
Right.
feeling obliged. It's just
Right.
a very minor,
Right.
sweet little thing, but it actually leveraged me
Yeah.
to handle, to acknowledge that awkward silent moment.
I like that.
Self-trust, yes, self-trust, but also I feel that it is our training, that it's old habit, that we
Mhm.
feel obliged to fill those things. Oh,
Right.
we need to say that something,
Right.
we need to do something again, a doer mind. and and also that I feel that it is kind of overconfidence in some way, because why I'm feeling that I'm responsible to fill in those awkward moments,
Right.
awkward
Right.
silent moment. So maybe self
Overconfidence or over responsibility?
over why I'm feeling that, oh, I can handle, oh, I can handle. Why you are feeling, Beena, why you are feeling that you can handle all these situations.
Mm.
And it when it increases, we jump into other people's arguments, and we jumps into those awkward situations where some people are not getting, and they are having some issues, and we feel that, oh no, you guys are misunderstanding, please don't do this and all. I think it just get compounding and getting bigger. So the very nuance here is just being positive is something where you don't feel any responsibility to fill in those awkward silent moments.
And that's why I love how you've shifted it to focusing on being not negative. That's
Mm.
all that's required. Positive is a bonus. When we
Right.
can be comfortable with the fact that it's not negative, the silence, is it not negative?
Right. True.
We assume we always think if it's not positive, then it has to be negative.
That's
Mentality of
right.
opposites. Mentality of opposites will give us a COVID smack pretty much every time. It's nonsense. It's nonsense because there's color. It's not just black and white. There's color. So there's many options. So this is a huge deal. And why I say self-trust is kind of a key component here, because
Mhm.
it's hard to trust when you don't have self-trust, right? Now,
Ah, oh, okay,
right.
okay, yes,
Go ahead,
yes,
Bina.
got
I
it,
can hold my point. Go
got
ahead.
it.
Okay.
No, I'm just
That's
saying,
it.
got it.
That's it. It's all connected. So when we look at this very carefully and we say, okay, that awkward silence, I'm not trusting myself to be comfortable in it. I'm not trusting that others will be comfortable in it, right? But it's mainly the self-trust. If I trust myself to be okay and comfortable, I trust myself not to be judged. And I trust myself that judging is not an issue for me. Okay, there we go. I trust myself not to have to respond to shoulds, because that's when you respond to that, you're acting on a should, right? Or I
Right.
should fill in that awkward silence. When you have self-trust, should becomes a non-issue, because it's your own logic that is important, not should, right? I trust my judgments, my thoughts, my discernments, my delineations, my understandings, my figurings out. Self-trust. If I don't trust it, how can I trust my figurings out? How can I trust my discernments, my perceptions? I can't. It's not possible. So that makes me awkward, right? But it
True.
starts with self-trust, because without self-trust, there is no other trust. I can't trust that
True.
things are okay. I can't trust that things are at peace, and so
Right.
on. So this is a huge deal. It's a huge deal. It's a huge deal. Very exciting. Very, very exciting. I love that you've taken this nuance out of it. Yes, unrelenting positivity is a profound thing, but to be not negative is
Mhm.
in a way positive, right? So to understand that nuanced contextual layeredness of the discernments, and we find this with many of these conceptions, that they become contextually appropriate. You see, so when you say to be not negative, yes, technically it's kind of neutral, but also that neutrality is positive, so it becomes a positive. So it's a very nuanced, layered thing, depending how and which context you see it. There's different meaning associated. but very powerful. Very, very, very powerful. Very powerful. And the logic of it, that you're asking yourself, what is the minimum that I need to do? And that's impeccable mood management and energy
Exactly.
management. That's it.
I
Because
think that's
otherwise,
a big
yeah,
thing.
say again?
Yeah, because if I catch myself, if I'm in a mood where it's just I'm just commentating and things are coming out negative. If I catch myself and then try to go the complete opposite direction, I know that's not going to work. So making the minimal shift, if I catch myself being negative, instead of trying to go from way down here to way up here, if I can just make a small shift from negative to not negative, rather than from negative to
Right,
super positive.
exactly, exactly. And that's the magic. It is the small shift. We can move in increments easily. Big jumps, not so much. And this is where a lot of people get stuck. The jump from them being negative in however smaller way, they're being irritable, to jump from being cheerful and happy, it's impossible. Their energy just does not, so they can't do it and they think it's impossible, and then they give up even trying. I say,
Right,
oh, all you got to do is not even be not negative. Just start by being slightly less negative,
right, right,
slightly less, like till you get to not negative, and then okay, that's all. That's there. You can stop. Yeah, yeah. That's why when you're in a mood and you see somebody in a mood and you ask them, you say, "Don't change your mood." That automatically changes it, right? Say,
right. That's
I want to
true.
test an experiment here. Don't change your mood. Hold it exactly where it is.
Mhm.
Now move the corner of your lip in the tiniest possible way that shifts your mood. You don't even have to say a smile. That shifts your mood. And then say, okay, just try it. Just move the lip and see if your mood shifts. And they do. They move that little corner. Just put a little tighter, whatever,
Like it.
changes your mood a little, and then, oh, can you just do that again? And then increment, and then suddenly the mood is different. Usually when people do that, they're like, I don't know, break into laughter. Now, it's hard for me to imitate the mood, but I tried. It's fascinating how that works, and you see it with kids as well, when they're
Yeah.
all glum and that. And then you
Right.
do that, and sometimes you can even just take your finger and you move the mouth with the finger, and then suddenly they'll start laughing. Just like that, it changes. It's incredible. It just is, you pop the bubble, in other words. Right? It
Right.
takes a pinprick to pop a bubble, and that's it. So tiniest shift can pop a bubble.
I like it.
Yeah, it's very exciting. Very exciting to connect this, what you are doing, the awkward silence, the talking, the filling in, with lack of self-trust.
Yeah.
And which of course, lack of self-trust, lack of independence of being. If
Hmm.
you have independence of being, awkward silence don't bother you in the least.
True.
You're happy being you, and that's it. End of story, right?
Very true.
Yeah, yeah. And if ever you get back into any sort of corporate or professional environment, your own business, whatever you're doing, United Nations, who knows what you're going to be doing or not. Even just having a party in your home, when you start to think of this, and how the self-trust and the independence of being and the queuing makes for the awkwardness, and when we realize that for the most part that awkward silence is a consequence of us,
Right.
our awkwardness cues awkwardness in others, and then they feel awkward because I'm awkward. So
Right.
it's so when that doesn't become an issue when you have independence of being, and of
Mhm.
course you have mood and energy management and attention management, all the stuff. So not a problem. And then too, when you add the sophistication of anticipation into it, very seldom a problem. Especially as a hostess, you monitoring, you watching your guests, you can see, you can see when the conversation's starting to kind of, you go and you step in and then you take over, and you always have topics and things handy. You're in hostess mode, you're anticipating. That is hostess mode, is to be in anticipation mode, right?
True. That's very
If you're a good hostess, you're watching everything, you have overview awareness, you're looking at the total, you can see detail at the same time as overview awareness. So you've got the full range of attention working for you, right? Plus, you're absolutely anticipating. Okay, are they ready? Is it time for cocktails? Okay, cocktail time. Is it ready for the first course? Okay, is everybody okay? And you see the thread. Okay, those two are, they're kind of getting bored with each other. Let's shuffle them around, and you lead one away. You introduce them to somebody else. All the things you do as a hostess, right? It is a marvelous thing. I don't think so many people, especially women, realize the exquisite skills they possess But when you start naming the skills in hostessing, all comes. Look at what I just said about anticipation and extrapolation. You have that skill, right? But if I said to you, oh, do you possess it? You was, but yes, you do, right? And same thing with Beena, So, and just exquisiteness, precision, balance, delicacy, sophistication, all of this. But particularly when it comes to energy management and emotion and mood management. As hostesses, I mean, I feel 100% confident to say that you're a fabulous hostess. This I have no doubts in saying, So this I feel very happy to say, put myself out on a limb. In other words, which I don't like doing, but I feel confident in this one, right? Am I? Is it a fair assessment that you're a good hostess?
I hope so. Yeah.
Without modesty, would you say? All right, let me ask it a different question. Would others say you are, or do they say you're a good hostess?
I haven't hosted with a lot of people, but I think the ones that I have said that. Yeah.
Right. But I mean, you can host many things, not just a party. You can host a dinner. You can host a meeting. You can host many things. But anything
Right.
in your home that where you are in charge, really, this is hostessing, right? I mean, even just people visiting, like Sher and Christina Rex, they both said you were a fabulous hostess when they were there. They were just very impressed by it.
Good.
Yeah. So I do have some external validation, but beside the two of them, I suspect this is true because you're attentive and you're courteous and you're considerate and you look out for people, and this is the key hallmarks of a hostess. You are hyper attuned to your guests' well-being, right?
True. Yeah.
And you make a lot of effort to make sure that your guests are comfortable, right?
True.
Yeah. It's all about them when you're the hostess, right? You're not there to. Your focus is on making sure everything's good for them. You're not chatting and talking and ignoring and say, okay, help yourself to whatever. No, you're completely hyper focused on them. You have an intent when you have people around. So hello, whoever that was. Sarah?
Yep, Sarah and my mom.
Well, ask Kay real quickly if she thinks you're a good hostess. Kay, can we ask you a question?
Sure.
I'm keen to know if not only you but others perceive and believe Erica to be a good hostess or a really good hostess. What did you?
She always works really hard, sure that everybody
Exactly.
feels
Exactly.
comfortable and that she's
Yes.
thought of everything to make whatever
Yes.
event
Yes.
is.
Yes. Now that's in the preparation stages. What about during the event? Is she attentive to their needs? Is she anticipating? Is she making sure everybody's happy, they're comfortable? She's preventing awkwardnesses and so on.
I think so.
Yep. I would be very surprised if that's not so, knowing Erica. I'll be very surprised. And the same thing for Kay, I would imagine. Same.
Yes. Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
So Erica Jayne, is Kay a good hostess?
Yep.
Is your hostessing any different to Kay's?
I mean, I don't know that either one of us have really all that much,
we're
but
not really,
but I don't think so. I mean, I think it's pretty similar.
Yeah, I mean, just when people come to visit, you're a hostess. It's not just parties. Just even people coming to visit.
Not many people visit either.
Wow. All
We
right.
really don't.
All right. Yeah, well, hillbillies out in the boondocks. What can you say? It's part of the life. It's part of the life.
Right.
What was the last thing I said? I couldn't hear.
So that's what happens when you live in Oklahoma.
Right, you Okies. What can you say? You Okies. I showed you that little clip with us in Hair, the movie Hair, the opening clip where it says Oklahoma on the road. I thought I showed you.
Oh, right. Okay, I remember you showed that.
I showing you. Yeah, you didn't remember it from the movie. Most people they don't see it in the movie, but I remember it very specifically.
I've never seen the movie.
It's been a long time since
watch it.
It's a fabulous movie. Yeah. We enjoyed watching it, right, Beena?
Oh yes.
Yeah, it was fun. It's a story about nobility.
Okay. Yes.
Right.
Okay.
The movie is a story about nobility of spirit.
Yeah, I remember you saying that.
Yeah. Now, when you watch it and you look at it that way, and you name a lot of stuff in the movie, when you play that name that app, These movies, even though they're old, it doesn't matter. And this, you'll see a lot of things that are, you'll also see the peculiarities and oddities of the time. And when you look at it from an intent point of view, you also see them trying to do certain things, and the intent behind it. So, I mean, you can very clearly see there's an intent to break stereotypes, very, very clearly. So,
Mhm.
so there's a lot going on in the movie. Yeah, it's very interesting. Yeah. Fun movie though. So, I mean, compared to today's standards, okay, a lot of stuff in there, but
Right.
still interesting to watch. So, as a history lesson too, it's really profound. So,
Yeah.
especially if you were to watch it with Kay, who she'll at least remember some of those times, maybe a little after. I think Kay's a little bit younger than that, right? She was a child during the late '60s, early '70s, during Vietnam era.
Uh,
I don't
in
know,
the
maybe not.
60s. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, she was at school in when the '70s.
Yeah. She
Yeah.
was born in 56.
In
So
which one? '66.
56.
Oh, 56. Oh, then she'll remember it. Oh, then she was old enough to remember it. Yeah. I mean, then 56 to 66. That's 10. So at 70, she would have been 14. So yeah, she remember Vietnam era. She remember
Yeah.
hippies and long hair and all that. Oh, she'll definitely
Yeah.
remember it.
Oh,
Oh
yeah.
yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Because it lingered for a long while after that. Even mid 70s, late 70s, it was still around. And so yeah, she'll be aware of it. All right, cool. So yeah, be good to watch with her. Just a lot of things will come up. All right, brilliant. That's exciting about the not being negative. That's profound. And then how
Yeah.
have the reminders to be impeccable? Have they become DERs? Your post-its, have they become DERs? The answer to that question?
They have. I mean, I have caught myself being. I mean, especially with the switch to not negative. I mean,
Mm,
am I being impeccable? There's. I don't know. I think I've caught myself in moments where I go, I could be being more impeccable, but I'm not being like nasty necessarily.
correct,
But when
correct.
I started thinking, am I being not negative? I really started catching myself a lot more with, okay, yeah, this is something that I need to be working on.
Wow.
So, yeah, I mean, I think the impeccability question, there were a lot of does, but with kind of adding some nuance to it, I've started to catch myself a lot more.
Yes. Now
Yeah.
I have a deep question for you. When you did catch yourself being what would be apparently non-impeccable behavior, was it behavior coming from you or from habit?
Hmm. I think habit and mostly and a lot related to the not negative question.
Right,
Like I said,
right,
I don't,
right,
I
right.
a lot of times when I catch myself being negative, I'm not intentionally being
Correct,
negative.
correct.
I'm
It's
not
not
like
deliberate.
consciously going,
Right,
it's
right,
just a
right,
habitual
right,
thing that just kind
right.
of comes out.
Exactly. So this is an important distinction because when you say am I being impeccable? We have to define that I. You
Mm-hmm.
are always impeccable. Your habits and your conditionings, the aspects of you, those may not always be. But when it's
Right.
unintentional like that, so yes, my aspects or my habits may not be impeccable. Different thing. I, however,
Mm.
am impeccable. This is no
Right.
question. Right. So yeah, this is why habit is the big issue. We can learn, know, understand, really get it without dealing with habits. It means nothing. The habits
Right.
can take it all back right like that. So this is the key. This is why the whole program is the habits. It starts with that as the focus. And we are looking at habits, it comes on later. We're shifting our habits to develop the awareness, the attention, so we can, because otherwise it doesn't mean nothing, right? You can so easily
Right.
behave in ways that are contrary to the real you. It's like, what the hell? I didn't want to do that, but it happened anyway. Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Let me ask you something, just to jump a little bit again. When you were at school or college or even at work, but particularly, especially high school, I'm thinking now, did you find yourself occasionally needing to be bitchy as a defense mechanism?
Hmm. Probably. I can't think of any specific instance off the top of my head,
No,
but
not in a specific incident, but just in general. Like when people make a snarky comment, and like you, when I was being a jackass the other day, and you said, I can't remember how exactly you said it. I don't know. It was fantastic how you did it. Can you remember, Beena? I don't even you did like a Nelson or something. I don't know. But not quite the Nelson, but like the cheerleader version of a Nelson. But that's what clued me into it. That that was a it came it came very fluidly, you see. And I thought, wow, this wasn't something that was just a spur of the moment thing, right? I don't think, there seemed to be that something you'd used previously, right? And I can see that now. Okay, you weren't being bitchy, obviously, but I can, when I was saying bitchy, I mean just in a vague, loose term, where you're doing that kind of a thing, but as a defense mechanism. Like if somebody was being nasty to you, you could have done the same thing in a bit of a
yeah,
counter nasty way, right?
right.
And that,
That definitely came into play with
okay.
my former stepfather. Yeah.
Ah, right. Okay. Okay. Because I did feel like at some point, I imagined that you could have been a very popular girl at school, and popular girls. No, you weren't. Ah, interesting. Interesting.
No,
And college, neither.
not really. No,
So
no.
were you like a loner at school then, or just had a small circle of friends?
Not certainly not popular. Yeah.
Right. But I mean, you had a group of friends though. You weren't a loner. Okay. All right. Well, that's kind of the same thing to me. Within your group, you were popular. Your group liked you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, the thing is too, when you're in that situation, as a defense against the so-called popular girls, they can have that. They can put pressure on you. And if you guys were an independent little group, then they sometimes see that as a threat to them, and they come pressure you. And you have to have these defensive mechanisms against it. So,
Right.
right. I mean, especially if you have a little bit of a something going on about you, this can make you, just because you're nice, you can get kind of stick coming your way, and you have to develop
Right.
as a countermeasure to defend your niceness. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't. I'm so non-confrontational. I think that really rarely came up
Right.
for me, but
Right.
that definitely happened with my stepdad for sure.
So you ended up defending yourself against him.
Hmm. All the time.
Interesting. Interesting. I mean, in two ways, it's fascinating because uh, if I understood from what you said before, the non-confrontationalness came as a result of him, but also the
Mm,
ability.
yeah.
No, oh, it came before that.
Oh yeah, I've always been that way.
Oh, 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 oh! I thought it was because that's very interesting. That's even more interesting then. I mean, if you look at it from an attunement point of view, sometimes we get things in our lives in order to force us to learn lessons.
Mm, true.
I mean, if you look at your stepfather then as a mechanism for dealing with not liking confrontation, yeah. I mean, you did
Hmm.
learn at least one skill
I did.
that helped with being confrontational. So, very interesting.
Very true.
Very, very, very interesting. But that's not an issue any longer, right?
True.
Right. I mean, the part of again, we get back to self trust or trust. Confrontation is simply because we don't trust ourselves to be able to deal with it or handle it.
Right.
Maybe you trust yourself to be appropriate, you find a way to deal with it. End of story. Have you ever had people over to your house who argued?
Who? What? Who argued?
Who argued between themselves, like a couple, and they get into an argument or get a little bit of tension.
Probably like a long time ago. Nothing I can think of
Nothing recent.
recently.
Yeah,
But
yeah. How would you deal with it now? Can you imagine?
if, if they were like arguing in front of me,
Yeah. You're having a conversation and one says something, says, no, that's not true, or what on earth are you saying? Like, where do you come with this? And then it just kind of gets off, it gets a little nasty very quickly,
right?
as it can happen. I'm sure you've seen this, right? At some point in time,
True.
or at least in the movies. Well,
True.
how would you deal with it if they were your guests?
Um. Gosh, I don't know. I guess it would depend on the situation. But
Of course it would. But just it is a difficult question to answer because yes, it's very appropriate situational.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
So I was hoping you could imagine something.
I don't know. Yeah, I mean, it would completely depend on the situation, I
Yeah,
guess. I mean,
yeah, yeah. It would.
I
It
think
would
most of
completely
the time
depend.
I
Yeah.
try to stay out of other people's arguments unless they specifically
Correct,
say,
correct, correct.
"What do you think about this?" or
Right,
whatever.
right. But I mean,
Uh,
I imagine what you would do is you would try and divert the attention, and maybe say, oh, what do you think of the dog? Because whatever comes on
right.
hand, you know what I mean.
That's been most of my experience with confrontation is like finding some diversion to,
Diversion,
oh,
it
let's
is.
go over
Yeah,
here now.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. It is a valid tactic. The key to making it work is self-trust again.
Mm,
When you trust yourself
But
to do it, say again, Beena.
avoiding avoiding confrontation or argument. For me, it's a very different thing. That yes, people who avoid confrontation, it means that they are directly involved in that, and uh, avoiding arguments again, they involve in that. I feel if I say that, okay, I want to avoid that, and I can say that very openly with you guys, that yes, I do feel really, I feel shivering inside when people start arguing and yelling and screaming and all these things, and I do avoid that as much as possible. I do avoid that. I don't like that, and not only I don't like that, but I feel scared of,
hmm
because I really don't know how to deal with that situation. No matter how composed I try to show myself, but really that thing, and when people that get really emotional, and especially yelling,
hmm
it's my weak point. I really don't know how to handle that. I do feel scared of this. And again, I'm asking this question, that avoiding confrontation and argument, does it mean that you are directly involved in that, or other people's situation you are talking about?
For me,
Like,
it's
okay, like
both.
but like Sil said, okay, you have guests and they start argument and arguing with each other, and you feel that, okay, because you are a host, so you are responsible, kind of, like,
Right.
and you don't want any mishap in your place. So yes, you need to jump in to do something. But what about if someone is arguing with you directly or confronting you?
Yeah. I mean, same. I think they both, for me,
Both. For
co-
me, both also.
avoiding
Yes.
confrontation is both of those things. Avoiding other people's confrontations and also avoiding being in one myself.
Yes, exactly same for me. So we have two situations. If one is that, okay, we are not directly involved in that, but
Right,
yes, somehow we
right,
are at that moment,
right,
but
right.
also are in that.
So either way, it boils
And
down to
I'm
self-trust.
really scared of. I'm really not courageous enough to
Right.
deal
But
all these
Beena,
things.
either way, it boils down to self-trust. If you have self-trust to be content in yourself, if you truly self-trust yourself, what does self-trust mean by implication? Does it mean that, doesn't it mean that you believe that you don't do anything wrong?
Mm,
Okay, yes, for sure.
By
But still, I
implication,
feel
I'm trusting that what I do is right according to me, that it's impeccable. I'm trusting that I'm sensible. I'm trusting that I'm not bad.
right. Boy, that was really interesting. That phrasing it that way really made me like go, oh, I don't like that.
Right. But
I don't
again,
like
right,
to think that I'm
right.
wrong because that makes me feel egotistical.
Correct. But this is now we have to shift out of that ego and look at ourselves honestly. When I shifted the
Right.
other way to say, okay, when you have self trust, you do believe that you aren't doing anything bad. Not
Right.
wrong, bad.
Right.
Right. Okay. So if you're
Absolutely.
not doing anything bad, then what are you doing wrong?
Right.
See?
Yeah.
Okay. So,
It's so interesting.
right. Right.
Yeah.
So when I look at now confrontation, usually what makes people uncomfortable is the fear of being wrong or being, having done something bad. If and they know they haven't, but they still doubt themselves that maybe I did something bad and I didn't realize it. Right? This is what earnest, good people do. And so when you have self-trust, you say, no, I didn't do anything wrong. I didn't do anything bad. I can't. It's not my nature. If inadvertently, okay, I'm sorry, I didn't mean it, but okay, and I'm at peace with that. So I don't have any fear of negative consequence because I trust myself to have been sensible and to be good. Maybe not sensible always, but at least to be good, not to be bad, right? I don't necessarily trust that I have done something good, but I do trust I haven't done something bad, right? So same thing, have I not negative, to look at it as the absence of negativity. We
Mm-hmm.
trust ourselves not to do negative, not necessarily to do good, but not to do negative, at least not
Right.
deliberately, right? So somebody comes
Okay,
and
and what
confronts me,
when
it's
when
their
what?
issue, not mine,
Hmm.
I'm trying to decide if that's why I avoid confrontation though. I
because of
don't
fear of accusation.
right. I don't know if that's I'm just kind of feeling it out. I don't know. I really don't know why I avoid confrontation the way I do and why I get so
Right,
upset when people are mad at me. I don't know that it's because I think that I'm going to have consequences because I've been bad. I don't know. I don't know
right.
why.
No, it's not necessarily about bad. I mean, there's many reasons, but I was just using it to think of it that way. When we understand
Right.
that, it gives us at least a starting point. Now, in your case, I could very much say it could very well just be an ego issue related to your perfectionism. You take great pride in doing things well and being perfect. So confrontation is by implication saying, oh, Erica, you weren't perfect. And this may be a
Right.
big issue, that in some part of you feel a need to be perfect. So any confrontation is by implication proof that you weren't perfect.
Right.
And it just takes one piece to be out of the perfection pyramid, and then the whole thing isn't perfect, right? Only one.
Right. I have thought about that though, that where the perfectionism thing comes from, because I've been talking about that with Kathy a lot. And that situation for me is like the chicken and the egg, like which one came first, because I keep thinking, okay, did I get into this perfectionist cycle because I wanted to avoid confrontation, because I didn't want people, I see perfectionism as a way of assuring acceptance and belonging, and so I avoided confrontation because, like, did I avoid confrontation because I wanted to be perfect, or did I want to be perfect to avoid confrontation? Like, which one
Okay.
came first? And I don't know, I still haven't quite answered that question for myself, but
Very interesting. Very
Um,
interesting.
uh, Erica, if
mm-hmm.
if this thing, just take it away, that okay, be good, and what people will think about that, and someone just come and start confronting you out of nowhere, and you are on your right, and on your right stance, and the other person is just keep doing that. If you don't have that uh, being perfect in every situation, this misunderstanding, what you will do and what you are able to do.
If just a random person.
Like, okay, some of your coworker, but you have nothing to do with that situation, or okay, and you were doing something, uh, everything right and perfect and order and in order, everything, but he or she got some confusion, or just trying to blame you for nothing, but yes, and they start arguing, and the confrontation start. So what you will do if you don't have this being perfect in every situation, and what you are able to do.
Well, I I'm not sure I understand. What would I do and what would I be able to do in
Yeah.
that
Because
situation?
sometimes, okay, if we just use that as an example, if I think of that situation for myself, I'll
Mm-hmm.
say, okay, if I don't have this, okay, some this idea in my mind that okay, I need to be perfect in every situation. What I will do in if I look at myself and understand myself, I will say, still I will avoid all this confrontation. And the next part of the question, what I will be able to do. Yes, this is the actual question for myself. I'm just sharing my perspective and my thing, that what I will be able to do, nothing, because actually I'm scared of confronting.
Mm,
I have a fear in that. I don't want to, and I really don't know how to confront people.
right.
I
I don't
I
either.
actually feel complex inside. Oh my God, something is happening, and people are arguing and they are confronting, even though I am on my right, but still.
Right.
So
Right.
that's why I was
Yeah,
asking. Yeah.
I mean, that's the same for me. Even if I have done nothing wrong and if it's a perfect stranger just coming up and yelling at
Yes.
me, I would still be petrified.
Yes. This is the problem, Sil. This is the problem I
Oh,
was
I
trying to
understand that.
say.
I understand that, but that's what I'm saying. Self-trust. You don't trust yourself to be able to deal with the situation, like you said.
I
You don't know
guess
how to
I
deal
guess
with it.
we need some bravery or something.
No, 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 no. I don't think it's anything to do with bravery. You just need to have a strategy and confidence and trust yourself. That's it. That's the point. You have to trust yourself to be able to deal with it in the moment. It doesn't matter that you don't know ahead of time. It's a situationally appropriate. Trust that something's going to come up with you to deal with it. You can confront, Beena, quite easily.
Uh,
You confronted the hotel manager when he was being inappropriate. You even
okay,
scolded him.
because yeah, not scolded, but yes, okay, because I did that because the situation was really not confronting, and he was not yelling. That aggressive situation was not there. It
Mm.
was not aggression involved. When it comes to aggression, and people just start yelling, and they just okay and start saying things out loud and shouting and all these things.
That's a really valid point. I have not thought about that. Like if there was confrontation, but the other person was being really level-headed and
Yes.
it wasn't like really energetically charged.
Mhm.
I think that's a really interesting point because I feel like I could easily handle that if I
Yes.
felt like
Yes.
the other person.
Yes, yes.
I've never thought about that before, but if the other person was being reasonable and wasn't flying off the handle and getting really like emotionally charged about it, I think I would be
Wow.
fine. It's when people
Ah.
are
Yes.
really angry.
This.
I've
This
never
is.
thought about that before.
So the
Yeah.
issue is not confrontation. The issue
Mhm.
is emotional overcharge.
Mm,
Like when I read some of my stories, they
Aggression.
make me emotional, and Beena can't handle it. She gets off.
Yeah.
oh,
It's a you
When
get it,
when someone, okay, your friends are crying or and shedding tears, so it made me so emotional. I said,
right?
I can't see that.
And
Nope.
the
sympathetic
same for
side.
you, Erica.
Yes, yeah.
Right. You see, it's not about confrontation. It is about emotional intensity. You struggle to deal with emotional intensity because you feel it. So it's not you can, like you said, if the person has been calm, you can confront them. Like in this case with the hotel manager, Beena successfully, confronted him because she needed to. She had to, and he was calm. But if he'd been shouting, it may have been different. It's the emotional intensity. In the same
Mhm.
way, when I get emotional, it makes Beena emotional, and she can't handle the excess emotion. So
Right.
this is it. It's excess emotionality that you need to learn to deal with, not
Mm,
confrontation. See, Beena?
interesting.
If
Ah,
you see the
but
commonality, right?
no, but aggression also, not
Right,
only
right,
emotional
exactly. But that
intensity.
aggression is an implied emotion. You
Right.
see, when somebody's pushing aggression, they're pushing an emotion. They could do it quietly. They're pushing an emotion. They're pushing the emotion of aggression. So yeah, this is a big deal to understand what it is that puts pressure on you.
Yeah, that's really
You
interesting. I
guys
never
are so open, you see? That's the point. You need to kind of close your energy shields down, that you're not always
Mhm.
Uh,
open like the Star Trek, like the Enterprise. Raise shields. You got to learn to raise shields. And there are people who
Uh-huh.
literally say, just visualize a shield around you, like the
Right.
Star Trek
Yeah.
shield, and do it
Yep.
with different colors, and you get that. But also, it goes towards the center into your abdomen. It's like you got to go tight down there, and this is you have to adopt a stance of ruthlessness, which is not negative, right?
Hmm.
Ruthlessness, we've discussed ruthlessness before. That ruthlessness of good mothers or the head nurses, they're not being negative when they have that ruthlessness. So that's the skill to develop, that ruthlessness. You were quite ruthless with that manager, weren't you, Beena?
Yes.
Right. So again, we tend to fall into a default of feeling when strong emotion comes our way that we need to reciprocate. We need to get into an empathetic vibe. And that's
Mm.
the point. And this is again self-trust, independence of
That's
being. We need to develop that conception that, hey, our emotions need not be influenced by others. Now, so Sophie, I want to ask both of your Sophies and say, okay, you understand that Sophie story, right? I mean, you heard the Sophie story, right, Erica? Sophie and the
I
philosopher.
heard Venus Sophie's story. Yeah.
Right. Well, that's the same. It's just a Sophie story, right? The one I read, Sophie and the philosopher, right?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. So where Sophie says, I'm Sophie. I'm Sophie the sophisticated. I will not be influenced, right? However, I'm going to insist that everything makes sense and be open and then determine the the sense and then decide, right? But first I need to be receptive. So that's the key point of the story. But the key point here that I want to focus on now, it is that adamance when it comes to being influenced.
Mm-hmm.
You guys are adamant about not being influenced, from a psychological point of view or philosophical or spiritual point of view, but not so when it comes to emotions.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yes.
This is all you got to do is simply take that same adamance against inadvertent influence and to say, hey, I've got these emotions coming in. I am going to determine if I'm going to influence. So the next time I read an emotional story, Beena, give a chance for you to practice it. Trying to think if there's one I
Come
could
on.
read right now.
So okay. So why you always get so emotional about that? You can be
Because
like,
they're beautiful
I'm not.
stories, Beena.
See,
Beena thinks I'm
see.
crying, but I'm trying to explain to Beena that it's emoting, not crying.
Right.
I can't cry. Really, I can't cry. I don't have that. I'm not upset. It's not something that's making me sad. No, it's just beautiful. I don't know. I get overflowed with emotions because they're so beautiful and magical. I enjoy the wonder of it and the magic and the nobleness of it, and that's what makes me emotional. Just
Okay.
appreciation.
Okay. I do feel and do feel the emotions really strongly.
Yes.
But in that case, when someone comes up and start arguing, and even not with me, and especially the shouting and yelling and
Right.
screaming and strong words, I feel scared of.
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
quite really
Right.
clear about
Right.
that.
But
Not
no, I
about I'm
understand,
getting
Bina.
involved with that.
Yeah.
I feel
Yeah.
scared of.
Right. And I understand, but this is also we have to understand spiral psychology, right? So those emotions are associated with aggression and fear, and usually somebody else involved is also feeling fear, and this just it spirals on itself. You see. So when we understand how this all works, then we can say, wait a second, I can just tighten up and say I'm going to disassociate and say that's your emotion, not mine, and then say, okay, they are being aggressive. They are putting that stuff. I don't need to feel fear because it is not directed at me. Now, sometimes, yes, as a woman, especially, you need to be aware that you could just be the innocent bystander and somebody lashes out at you because you're simply close by. So it is prudent to be, but also be aware, Bina, that victims invite aggression. So fear attracts aggression.
True.
It's a
I
natural part of
also
nature. That's how you
this
hunt.
is
Say
yeah,
again.
that's true. That it's making me realize I mean I think I have and I'm learning over the course of this um, program for sure that I definitely have a disconnect with personal power I I think I'm afraid of like owning my own personal power. And
Yes.
part of that, like
Yes.
this particular issue, especially of confrontation and all of that, is coming back to the whole idea that you brought in the beginning of it being a self-trust issue. For me, I'm wondering if part of that is if I am not trusting myself and my own personal power to not, like, if my natural inclination is to reciprocate, take on that mood and put it back out, if I'm around a bunch of anger and aggression, am I not trusting myself to not do that, if that makes
Right.
sense? Like, am
Right.
I avoiding confrontation because I'm afraid that I'm going to become angry and aggressive, and I don't want to connect to my personal power
Yes.
because
Yes.
I don't trust that I
Yes.
can.
Yes. You're scared you might lose it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yes.
I think I have always had a major issue with
Yeah. Yeah.
owning my own power, seeing myself as being powerful.
Yeah.
And I think part of that is
Right.
just a self
Right.
trust issue,
Right.
not wanting to flip that switch.
Right. But
Oh, because we have that.
ah, go ahead, Beena. Go ahead, Beena.
No, I was saying that because is it because that we have some negative association with power, and we
Yes.
associate with
Yes.
aggression?
Right?
Correct. Correct.
Right.
And that's what I was going to say. There's the problem. Association management. Power is not aggression. Those nurses, those head nurses, they never use aggression, or very seldom. They can be if really needed, but they almost never do. That's not where their power comes from. Power is not
Yeah.
in aggression. It's not about being aggressive. It is about standing your ground and having adamance. It is about not being intimidated. It is about the ability to precisely to not be emotionally influenced. You
Mm-hmm.
can't you can't sway me with all your emotional pressure. I'm holding my tightness together. That's it, you know. And no matter what all this emotional pressure brings some sensibility to the table, and then of course it crumbles. They can't
Mm-hmm.
make a sensible case, you know. Don't come and get all squeamy and you can't clean my dirt out of my wound. Where's the logic? You want to get it to fester and infect and die? But people don't think logically when they're emotional, you see.
Right.
So it is about giving our logic and our sensibility, our sobriety, especially giving it full credibility. When we do that,
Mm-hmm.
this is where we claim our power. You know, power and sobriety are kissing cousins, as they would say. Very close. Joined at the hip. That expression came up a little earlier. You're obviously familiar with that, I would assume, right, Erica Jayne? What does it mean to you, joined at the hip?
Well, I was, I mean, I always think about like Siamese twins
Precisely.
being
Correct.
physically joined at the hip.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And I think that's the origin of the expression. Precisely. Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, it's very interesting. It just came up in our conversation earlier, and it wasn't one that Beena was familiar with.
Yeah, we did.
Yeah. Beena dropped off. Yes, yes, yes. So this is really interesting about, claiming personal power, that you say that.
Mm-hmm.
Have, you have, and same with Beena, you guys have magical personal power. And part of being impeccable is to trust your personal power, no matter how small it may be.
Right. Right.
Right. But this thing of emotional defenses, uh, you guys are emotionally vulnerable. So really make a point to practice being ruthless. Now, I
Mm-hmm.
suspect when it comes to dealing with your animals, you can be ruthless sometimes in that positive way.
Right. Yeah.
You can scold them,
Sure.
you can chew them. If there's something's attacking your chickens, they're gonna get it. They're gonna get those COVID smacks with that broom of yours, right, or whatever you spade or whatever's handy. You'll
Yeah.
be quite ruthless when it comes to defending your chickens, right, or your dogs, or Joe. Yeah.
Yep.
See, so you do have
True.
the. You just need to exercise it. And when you get into that
Mm-hmm.
space of when you're
Well,
dealing with the animals, emotionality, you shut it down, right? You tighten it up, right?
right.
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 So same thing. If you think of confrontation, just do the same thing. Just tighten up in that same way, and just think of them as a chicken.
Right.
Can you picture somebody
Yeah.
that was confrontational towards you fairly recently? Like somebody at
Yeah.
work, maybe. All right, now picture them as a chicken. Just
Um.
kind of merge it. Give them a chicken beak and a little thingy on the
Right.
head.
Right.
You see how it changes? Suddenly, what they
Yeah.
are doing becomes absolute just gibberish, right?
Mm-hmm.
All that, and the emotionality coming from them. Likewise, because you're having
Right.
that tightness, it's the emotionality is there. Yes, I know you're pushing it at me, but it's gonna bounce off me. My tightness won't allow it. Won't allow it in.
Right.
That's the point. You guys are open by default. Me too, actually. I have the same problem. So I feel that with people because I'm generally very open.
Mm-hmm.
So if they catch me by surprise, then I pick up their emotion, and I actually, for me, unfortunately, I don't get, I don't feel it as a stress, and like you guys, I don't retreat from it. I go into it. I feel right back at them, which is
Right.
it works. It is effective, but not the most effective strategy. Being preemptive
Right.
and
Right.
having that tightness ahead of time, this is a much better strategy. Much, much,
Mm-hmm.
much, much, much better. So this is important to be aware of. So hold on 1 second. I got somebody at the door. Hold on. Hold on. Sorry, Erica Jayne.
No.
I don't often get knocks at my door, so it's exciting.
Mm.
I did hear Justin. Hello, Justin. No worries, man. No worries.
The woman who lives right here, she's an enemy.
Oh, across the way. The one in the greenhouse or the next door?
Next door.
Right.
I told them upstairs. I said, you guys can. I said I can get along with 99%. I said they said 90. Somebody told me that 90% of people in Jerome will help you.
Yeah.
She's part of the 3% that will always be an enemy.
Gotcha.
The way she's talking to me, she said, and it all started with I parked a car down there, and Adam, her son, she owns both properties.
Why?
He says, yeah, you can park down there. And she today, I waved to her. She's been the one always when I wave her through any energy, she just stares. And
Yeah.
she's been so grumpy. And she goes,
Yeah.
Justin, your car's on my property. I said, well, your son told me to put it there. I'm so sorry. I will move it. I did not know that. And she is just, and she says, she just gets into this whole thing. How many people do you have in there? And so I got ahead of it, and I texted the head of zoning. I said, look, Kathleen has a real axe to grind.
Yeah.
You've seen my place. You've walked through the building inspector. The bottom line is I get ahead of it. I name all the people that I've made relationships with on the street.
Yes. Good.
And
Good.
I'm meeting with Jack on the corner, who's in the town council, and the head of zoning at 3:30, and I'm telling him that only 5 people are living here, which, by the way, is not that untrue. I said, we are a hospitality group who needs a place to rest, and we come up here and socialize.
They come and they go.
But I live in Clarkdale. Other people live in Clarkdale. I told the guys, I said, all the buses, the vans are never going to even come through the street anymore. We're taking the side road.
Good.
Because what she's worried about is the bumping cars coming through, even if they don't stay here. And just to let you know that we may be coming by around 3:30. I said, look, there's someone here. We got 4 people upstairs. We have extra bunk beds, so I don't sleep here, but I need to rest. I said, but you can see we're supposed to be everything is at 10 o'clock is shut down with us. And so we haven't, and he replied back that of zoning, he goes, well, Kathleen can be a little cold.
Yeah.
And we have no official complaints so far.
Yeah.
So it's just,
good. There you go. I'll pay attention. I get on very well with both Andy and Andy or Adam. Adam. I was going to say what I call him Andy. He's Adam. I do that with names sometimes, and with Victoria as well. Yeah, no problem.
hello.
Hey, Justin, Bill will take
Hi.
All right, are you there?
Saved by the bell. Sorry, Erica. I tried to make it quick, but sometimes it doesn't work that way. So
I was making notes. I was making notes to myself, so it was fine.
Brilliant. Has Beena joined us back again?
No, she's still on.
Yeah. That's surprising. Yeah. So, but she'll be back. So this is a huge issue again. This emotional vulnerability, and it's one that we will really work on. And there's actually it comes up in the RPS course, or at least we're going to rename that course to the psychology of self-honesty.
I like that.
Yeah. I mean, it's all about narcissism and bullshit and all of the superiority paradigm. But all of that is a consequence of a lack of self honesty. And it's to understand it. I mean, it
Mm-hmm.
is also, you could say, it's a psychology of the superiority paradigm, which I may call it that. I'm still debating on the name. But, from a personal connectivity point of view, if you it's the frame of reference that I'm after. If you're looking at as the psychology of self-honesty, now everything you relate to starts making more sense, right? And you see this, and to be self-honest, you can't really get into superiority, but it is definitely the psychology of the superiority paradigm. So I might switch it to
Mm-hmm.
that because it's a more overview
Yeah.
perspective, and then maybe the
Right.
subtitle is the psychology of self-honesty. um, yeah,
Right.
yeah, because this is very important, because like Sue was saying, oh, who knew there was so much to bullshit? It's not about the bullshit, it's about the psychology of it, and all the nuance and the
Mm-hmm.
details of the superiority paradigm psychology.
Right.
And the more we understand that, the more we can see its subtleties in us, because it is the predominant
Mm-hmm.
psychology, unfortunately, and it has been for centuries. So it's a cultural paradigm.
Right.
And in order to fully unhook,
Right.
we have to understand the nuance, right? The subtlety.
Mm-hmm.
So we through seeing the excess, we can identify the subtle, and we
Right.
don't get
Right.
snagged up in it. Like, for instance, the subtle ego of excessive humility and modesty.
Mm-hmm.
See, that we start to see it in ways, because you see some of the BMNs and the bullshitters, they do this. They pretend to be so humble, and now they do it in excess. We might just do it subtly and very, very much more sophisticatedly. So we even fool ourselves sometimes. So or at least we think we do. It
Right.
doesn't last too long, but and that's what I was wondering too with the confrontation. It might be an issue of that, the subtle ego of perfectionism, that you don't want your perfection bubble to be broken, you see. So when somebody confronts you, it's like, oh, am
Right.
I wrong? Did I do something wrong? And this is a big fear. But I don't think that's it either for
Mm.
you or Beena. It's just that emotional vulnerability. And this is
Right.
something that, I do see it very clearly in Beena. I haven't seen it from you so much yet. Well, because I've never been in a situation where there's been strong emotion. But I see
Right.
it as
Right.
being when I read the stories, she had to leave the one story. She couldn't stay. It was really
Yeah.
affecting me more so than usual when I was reading the Seeds of Goodness
Yeah.
story. I don't know why. I never get that emotional. I don't know. Maybe whatever. Who knows? Maybe it was just to see the reaction in Beena, but she had to
Well,
leave.
right. It's interesting because I mean, we were saying a couple sessions ago, I know I am a very emotional person, and
Mm,
I've always felt like emotions are things that I don't have a choice in and that I can't control. It's
there's
just,
the point.
along for the
There's
ride.
the point. Right.
And
Right.
I I haven't, but I haven't ever thought about, like, I don't have any problem being around other people who are crying, who are
Yeah.
being
Yeah.
really
Yeah.
emotionally
Yeah.
sad. It
Yeah.
doesn't bother
Yeah.
me to
Yeah.
be with someone who is really sad, who's
Right.
crying. I
Right.
start crying too, but it doesn't necessarily
It
bother
doesn't
me to
overwhelm
be
you the
around.
way. Yeah.
Well, I mean, yeah, it doesn't overwhelm me in a negative way. It's,
Right.
it doesn't necessarily bother
Right.
me to
Right.
be swept up in
Right.
emotion,
Right.
but the the anger and the aggression and, like, what she
Right.
was talking about specifically with
Right.
confrontation, that absolutely does.
Yeah.
It seems
Yeah.
like a lot of the other emotions, it doesn't bother
Right.
me to think of
Right.
being swept up in that,
Right.
but the anger and aggression, it for sure does.
Let me ask you, is this something specific to people? Like if you see dogs fighting, do you have the same reaction? Or
Yeah.
chickens? Okay. So it's general aggression then. Okay.
Yep.
Yeah. 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 So,
And I actually remember getting really upset when Joe and I first got together. My dog was very, he was just a sweetheart. He was
well,
very
what's your dog's name
submissive.
again? I did meet that dog, right? I believe.
Yes, yeah, Axel.
Axel, that's right. Axel. Yes, 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 yes.
He
Yeah.
was just very easygoing, very submissive. He was always at the bottom of the
Picking order.
pecking order,
Mm,
with whoever he was with, because
mm,
he just was very easygoing.
yeah.
And so Joe's dog, Tank, was such a shit, and they would get into it, you know, like Axel never fought with anything because he would just go, no, you know, I don't need to be
Yeah.
in charge, I'm fine. But Tank would just constantly like
Come and pick on him. Yeah.
split that. Yeah, it was like, okay, I'm gonna push you around, I'm gonna do this. And Axel would never stand up for himself, and it bothered me so much that there was that aggression going on, that I would like constantly police it and like make Tank go, you know, go lay down in the other room by himself. And whenever the chickens do that to each other, of course, again, my favorite chicken is the one that's at the bottom of the pecking order. She's so sweet. Whenever the other ones are picking on her, I always like police it and break it up because I don't like seeing them be that way.
Right.
That's
Now, is that maybe because you identify?
Oh, I'm sure in a certain respect that, you know, that happens to me and I don't stand up for myself. So I'm
Well,
standing up for
that
them.
you see yourself at the bottom of the pecking order in some way, or towards the bottom. That's what
Well, yeah, for sure. 'Cause I feel like I don't, anytime, I mean, that's how you don't be at the bottom of the pecking order, is standing up for yourself. And I never stand up for myself in confrontation.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. All right. So let's look at this issue of standing up for yourself. Is there just one way to stand up for yourself? Is the only way you can stand up for yourself to be aggressive?
no,
Oh,
I mean,
there's many different ways to stand up for yourself, isn't there?
yeah.
All right. So what would some of the other ones be? Let's be a bit more specific.
I mean, the first thing that comes to mind for me is just not lashing out, but not budging, like kind of standing your ground.
Right. Adamance, in other words. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's interesting. I think it's time for us to revisit that story again. But I'm kind of keen for you to finish the program and then we do it. Yeah. So we can do it really thoroughly, you know, and I want to make a course out of that, you know, especially the capital D diplomacy. So I want to really go into it with tasks and everything. So, you know, it's part of the Mourners project. So it's again, it's you know, we did start on it, but it's so much to it that it needs to be broken down, you know, into it's a whole module, you know, it needs to be broken. Even this one article, it needs to be really fleshed out and fully taken to that next level. That's important. So. Interesting. So I'm keen to do that at some point, you know. But yeah, I do think that this is an issue that to reassociate what standing up for yourself means. That adamance does not mean you can just simply be adamant about not being emotionally influenced. And that alone will diffuse most confrontation.
It's true. Yeah.
Very simple, but a huge deal. Yes?
Yeah, absolutely.
And this is the thing. This is why that whole article was, or one of the reasons, was so profound for Beena, because she clicked about her father's adamance. You know, her father wasn't an aggressive person at all, but he was very admired and very respected. But he never, ever, ever relented when it came to matters of integrity. Never, not once. So even though he wasn't aggressive, he never relented. He never compromised his impeccability or his integrity. Never. He was always adamant about maintaining it. And when I named it as adamance, oh, it all clicked for Beena. Now, she didn't necessarily know much of it firsthand, but because people still talk about him, even though, you know, he died, I don't know, 20 something years ago, 25, I don't know, a long time ago. So then it all fell into place for Beena. She says, oh, I get it now. And now I understand not only what adamance is, but also why my father was respected, because he was adamant about never compromising on his integrity. And are you not likewise the same?
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah. How is somebody going to make you do something against your integrity?
Right.
Even if they threaten you with aggression, you know, you'll be upset and you'll be bothered, but you're not going to do the things that they want you to do, right? So when you think of it,
I think that makes a lot of sense to me. The idea of being adamant without being caught
aggressive.
up in
Correct.
all of the aggressive emotions.
Yes. So this is why adamance, you'll see in that adamance, why it is associated with capital D diplomacy, because we are adamant about particular things. And the capital D diplomacy is precisely about standing your ground. There are some things that we are adamant about, like we are adamant that we have good intent here. If you are in this with your intent to destroy things, well, sorry, then there's no real negotiation involved, right? There's no diplomacy. Then it's the different logic. You know, now we are going to get somebody else to come and deal with you who is, you know, a COVID smacker. That's it.
Right.
You know, if you're gonna go around spitting on oranges, you're gonna get COVID smacks, right? Because that was the video, right? The guy spit on the oranges. So if you're gonna go around spitting on oranges in a public display, okay, you know, you're going to get smacked. So it changes the underlying logic. Beena, hello, Beena, hello, back again. Beena, you're muted. Just want to make sure you're here. We're coming full circle, and we are saying that when it comes to this fear of aggression and being put outright, it's emotional vulnerability. It's that openness to emotion, which needs to, first of all, tighten up and to develop that ruthlessness. So we have to practice that, to practice switching off our emotions and to distance and say, nope, I'm not going to be involved. And you can do it with movies. Next time you're watching a movie of whatever kind, that's when your emotions, you start to feel some emotion, say, nope, and you tighten it up and you say, no, I'm not going to cry, I'm not going to get upset, I'm not going to, and just practice that, because we can apply that same skill to aggression. We want to deliberately open up that valve, that filter, to and have it closed at our choice. And the second point is the understanding or the belief that standing up for ourselves is associated with aggression. It's not. It's not the only way to stand up for yourself. Beena, your father wasn't an aggressive fellow, right?
Nope.
He was a gentleman. I mean, in
Yes.
all aspects, he was a gentleman and a gentleman, right? But
Yeah.
he was never intimidated
Never.
because he was adamant, right? He had profound adamance. He stood up for himself. He never relented when it came to his integrity, his impeccability, his sensibility, right? His
Never.
ethics.
Never.
Never. He was adamant without being aggressive, right? So when it comes to dealing with confrontation, this is all we need to do, is be adamant about our qualities, adamant about having integrity, and not adamant about not letting our integrity be compromised, adamant about our sensibility, adamant about our goodness, adamant about our compassion, adamant about all of our good qualities, right? It's got nothing to do with aggression. It's got everything to do with being adamant, right, Beena? Make sense?
Yes, it makes sense.
I
Even with
understand.
movies, I do avoid all kind of sad movies and tragic and all these things. I can't watch that. I'm the one who shed tears.
Right.
So
But Beena, next time you get a really soppy movie, practice being deliberately that positive ruthlessness. Say, okay, I'm in head nurse mode, and that's it. I'm being in scientist mode. Okay, think of it in scientist mode. That's a good mode. You're observing your subjects display emotional qualities, and you're observing your fellow viewers to see their emotional reactions to it. You're observing yourself to see how it affects you. So when you get into scientist mode, it's very useful. You know, you get into overview perspective mode, and the stuff doesn't affect you quite as much. It's very powerful. Right. I don't want to lose stuff here, so let me just switch my headsets here real quick. When I hear that pinging, I don't know if you guys hear it, but that's my headset telling me my batteries are low. Because Beena and I have been here since 2 o'clock. So we're supposed to. The Beena thought it was mystery solving night this morning, but it's actually tomorrow morning, right, Beena? So we were up early for that. All
yes,
right.
it was my mistake.
That's all
Yes,
right. I like being up early,
I
so it don't
understand.
matter. All right, I'll be back in 1 second here. Let me just get this on, and then I'll switch. It's quick to switch over. Very handy having two headsets. You know, it was a kind of an accident, but all right. Okay, I'll be back in a second. All right, you can hear me now, right?
Yep.
Not yet.
No.
Yes.
Oh, now? All right. Cool. I hear you. So it takes a little while. All right. Brilliant. So this is a very powerful point, to reassociate aggression and deliberately to practice emotional shielding and to be able to go tight as required and open and tight as required. And part of that is also to practice anticipation. You can see it coming. You see, that's the thing with the movies. You're watching and you get sucked in and you're allowing it to happen. But, if you, by surprise, if you set yourself ahead of time, okay, I'm going to be a scientist, I'm going to be the head nurse, then it's much easier to deal with them. So, but it's just a skill you have to practice like any other, just a skill. Just a skill. Very useful skill to practice because we do need it because otherwise we make ourselves vulnerable. We make ourselves vulnerable to manipulation too, which is not good. And those that are manipulative, when they see you are put out by aggression, they will deliberately push it at you to do this. Not just aggression, they'll put, try and convince you of stuff, and they'll put emotional pressure to say, oh, do you agree? And you don't want to confront, so you just kind of, oh yeah, I agree.
Right.
They co-opt your agreement in that way. Oh, you don't say anything because you don't want to say, no, I don't agree. So they can smell it. They really, really are very fine-tuned to this. So it's all part of that RPS course. So there's a lot in this, which we're going to get to in the as we go through it. Beena hasn't, you haven't been doing too much of it with me, but we will be. You'll see with Sue. I mean, when we do it over with Sue, you'll see how this emotional manipulation, pushing walls of energy, using vibe and tone and mood, all of these things. Once you're aware of it, it just changes everything else. So if you watch the movie from a movie maker point of view, as a social scientist, what cues are they using? How are they manipulating your emotions? It shifts everything. It's very cool. And you can allow it or not. It's very cool. Very cool. All right. Before our time runs out, where are you in the program, Erica?
I started module 7.
Excellent.
One.
And module 7, the first one is, remind me again, please.
Sorry.
Oh. You'll have to start putting those headings into your notes, please, Erica, because I don't remember the names of them.
Oh, no, I do. I do have them in my notes.
I see.
I was making a note real quick before I forgot.
Oh, I'm sorry. I like when you make notes, Erica. You can just give us a pause finger if you want. Please. I love it. I can't always see. Usually I hear, but yeah, there you go. Just,
Okay. Now it's in a different set of notes. There we go. Okay, so module 7 is awareness and making sense of it all.
Yes.
And
Yes.
session 1 was insisting on extracting the more.
Oh, yeah. That actually originally was made as a corporate training video, by the way.
I wondered because it seemed really different than a lot of the other sessions. So I figured it must have either been the first one or something kind of.
No. Yeah. Brilliant. I love that you pick up on that. So let me ask you before you get into it. When you were, now I'm assuming you had some sort of a managerial role, right? That's from what I understood.
Nope.
No? Oh, I thought you had a team under you, no? You were in a team. Okay. Yeah. Well, anyway, your managers or your executives, if you were to imagine them doing this as a training course. Now, the way it is set up is to do it the way you do it, to do it. Okay, you watch a video though, but they take notes, do repeat backs, do takeaways, right. And then people would share. Now, you wouldn't, depending on how big the group is, not everyone would share because there'd be some overlap and redundancy. And you'd mix it up, you'd get some to share on some parts, some to share on other parts. Because if you go first, then the guys afterwards have an advantage. They can make notes while on your takeaway to add to their takeaway. So, but how do you feel that this would affect in a corporate environment? The effect of it would be.
The effect of what?
Of this session, what do you think its effect would be in a corporate environment?
Would be, well, could be. I mean, I think it's interesting. I felt like this particular session was a sort of mini summation of everything that we've done in the program so far. So I think
it is.
I think I think there's a lot of concepts in it that, to me, it was a major session because we've already covered a lot of the more nuanced things. But for people who are not familiar with the terms and stuff, I mean, I think it would, I don't know. I think if it was just that session on its own, I think there could be a lot of people that just go, because they don't really understand the full meaning of everything. But if people were doing the entire course and had the whole background, I think it would be absolutely perspective shifting.
Now, if they did it without having done the whole program, then the intent is to say, hey, you gotta, like I'm the CEO now. And if I'm me and I'm doing this, I'd have to do it in conjunction with the CEO. And the instruction to the executives would be, listen, don't take this thing on surface value. This is a test of you and your discernment skills and your skills, what you pull out of this. So don't write it off. It's a test. And then when they come and they do the repeat backs, then I bring the moreness that is there. Right. And I start, and then they're like, I never thought of that. I never connected that. Say, yes, you want to call yourself an executive, but you need to have discernment. You can't just assume things. You can't just not pay attention to intent. You need to pay attention to intent. You need to learn to extract stuff. You can't just, what did the employee say? Oh, why are we late? Oh, my mother died. Okay. But his mother died last week. You see, you have to think deeper. You can't just think regularly. I can't think of examples offhand. I'd have to go into it. But you get my point that now you bring that moreness. And so the way you do it to people who haven't done it is you use it as whatever they bring as means to connecting to the moreness. So then they would essentially get a little mini way of impeccability program in just that session, which would make it very powerful. I mean, it would be kind of overwhelming, but because you can bring a lot in 2 hours or whatever long the workshop is, that you're doing with them. But then you may even break it up and do it longer. But yes, like you said, doing way of impeccability, this is where we are heading to do it in corporate environments and for CEOs. And then from them there, then they say, oh, you know what, this is fantastic. You got to go, I'm going to do the Monas project, the masterclass. You're going to take this program and do it to my executives. And now they bring it as a corporate culture and we change the world. Yeah. So yeah, it's coming. But yeah, I mean, you see the way of impeccability in a corporate environment will be unbelievable, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, just change if you just imagine working for a company that has this as corporate policy. You want to be an executive in this company, you have to take this program. That's it, And it, of course, trickles down to all the employees. You want to rise up the ladder? Do the program, This is it, So be huge. Imagine a company where everybody, if you want to join this company, you're required to take the program.
Right.
And you got to graduate from the program, not just do it. No, but of course the program has self-proof inherent in it and ownership. So that's the point. It's very easy if you see somebody shining you on. You know what I mean? They won't be able to do the repeat backs and takeaway. So nope, no graduation for you. Nope. So yeah, very exciting. All right, so on this point of the more, it's here. We do have a little extra time today. There's nobody after you today, so if you have time, then we can go longer if you could.
I don't know if I do, because I think Joe is going to be done on his next call here in a minute. But I have a lot of notes here, so we'll probably have to trickle into
tomorrow. Okay. Well, we go as appropriate.
I will go for as long as I can.
Sure. All right, good.
So, obviously, the question at hand for this session was, we have to insist on extracting the more.
Yes.
And so I really liked, I made a couple of notes in the beginning that I liked that this session was a breakdown. I mean, this one was really different to me. It really had a totally different vibe than all of the rest of the sessions, or in many different ways. But I liked that it was a breakdown of that one statement, just kind of setting that statement up, breaking that down. And for me, what I thought was cool about this was that the entire session was essentially an example of what that statement is telling you.
Exactly. Yeah.
You're
Yep.
taking, you know, we have to insist on extracting the more. That seems like a simple statement at face value, but when you insist on extracting the more from it, you get all of this stuff.
Yes.
And that's what
Yes.
this session
Yes.
is doing. So
Yes. I love
it's
it.
giving
I
me
love
an
it.
example and a blueprint of
Yeah.
how to do
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. Exactly.
I
So
thought that was-
just a quick little computer point. We were, the whole session is unpacking a cabinet file. It's
yeah,
deliberate depacketizing, right?
absolutely.
We're depacketizing this time.
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah. It's very exciting to do.
Absolutely. So for me, the entire session just majorly connected to trust. And especially particularly for me, because I have such an inherent connection with responsibility in trust, that concept of when you're entering into a commitment of trust that you have a responsibility associated with that commitment. This whole session to me really had an underpinning of responsibility, and so that immediately tied it to trust for me. And so I noted, I said, you know, it seemed to me like this was encompassing a lot of the previous concepts from prior sessions. So I saw things like mood management, attitude shifting, perspective shifting, trust, choice, unrelenting positivity, motivation, playing life, application. These are all concepts that were being brought forward in this session. And so it really, to me, it felt like an encapsulation of a lot of the concepts that we've already seen in the previous sessions.
Fantastic. Yes. Yes.
So, but for me, because trust has been such a major point thus far, there was a major connection to trust in this session. So
Yes.
I broke down, I was trying to kind of bring in some of the different related concepts that jumped out at me when I was doing the session. So I wrote down from that first statement, we have to insist on extracting the more. I wrote this kind of series of things that brought in additional concepts to me. So as a repeat back of what was said in the session. So we have to insist on extracting the more. First, we have to trust that there is more.
Yeah.
We have to trust that we have the awareness necessary to see that there is more.
Yes. Yes.
We have to choose to deliberately perceive the more.
Yeah.
We have to accept responsibility for choosing to see the more.
Yes. Yes.
We have to trust that we have the ability to extract the more.
Yes. Yes.
We have to accept our responsibility to extract the more.
Yes. A slight nuance on what you said before, but an important nuance. Yes.
And we have to accept our responsibility for applying this perspective shifting concept in every moment.
Oh, that last one, please again.
We have to accept our responsibility for applying this perspective shifting concept in every moment.
Yes. Yes. In every moment. Applying in every moment.
Yep.
Yes. So really what we've done and what we've consistently been doing, right? Now we're going to get nice and sophisticated on this here. What we've been doing is we've been taking ideas, perceptions, beliefs, right? Or notions, whatever it is. We've been tightening them up to get into self-evident sensibilities, right? Then we've taken those and we've got this grouping. We've already now sorted all this massive detail and we've basically packaged it into hierarchical groupings. In this case, positive hierarchies, right? Conceptions. Then we took those conceptions and packed them into a greater conception. Then we took those, we had a bunch of those, we packed them, and we kept building this pyramid, right? Which at the top of this pyramid, we can place any number of terms: impeccability, appropriateness, awareness, attunement. Any one of them can be the capstone, right? Because in some way, they all mean the same thing in some way, right? So that's the key, though. We've been constantly grouping conceptions into smaller and smaller and tighter groups. But this one takes a conception, and we start to go back down the ladder into the various strands, various trees, right? So we're starting from the root and going out towards the leaves. And we're getting to the nuance, to the detail, so that we're showing how much in a single sentence, short sentence too, which is really a conception, right? Insisting, extracting more, right? Right. So this, you could call it insistence, instruction of more, as a two-word thing, right? And in that we are saying how much is packed in there, and by implication, if we just bother to unpack it, right? This cabinet file, this fractal conception, let's water it a little bit, give it energy, let's grow the seed. Right. This is an awesome thing. And when we have this and understand that every single entry into your dictionary of power is similarly such a compressed, compound conception. It is a compound, condensed, fractalized, packetized conception. And this is huge. But we want to have that ability to go from conception to detail and down all of the paths. We want to be able to see that pyramid from the top down. It's all going there. We want to see the whole tree. And this is very powerful. This is very powerful. And when we develop this ability to insist on extracting them all, that insistence is very key. So it doesn't just become an occasional thing, but always. That's very key. When we do this, we start to see the more in everything. And we have trust in our ability to extract the more. We have trust in our ability to insist on extracting that more. And it's a magical thing. It's a magical thing. That's really when moreness goes exponential. Absolutely. And we are able to connect to it from any point. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. Any point takes us to infinity. Doesn't matter. They all come back down. It's like they say your the DNA is in, it's in every strand of you, no matter what. You can always construct the whole out of the fragment, I forget, there's a particular name for this, where you take any sliver and you can construct the whole out of it. I forget, but you know what I mean. Yeah. So this is very powerful. Yeah. The whole is contained in the fraction.
Right.
Yeah. Absolutely. I guess it's fractal logic. So.
Right.
Yeah. Very, very beautiful. This is more. Keep going, please. You just get me all excited. Your earnestness, it pulls stuff from me. And when you get so deep into it and you get into that layer, that sophistication, it all starts to explode. Yeah, I love it. I love it. It's very exciting.
Let's see. So, okay. I'm just going to pull out some key concepts here. A big thing for me was the deliberate perception concept. That basically, that being tied to unrelenting positivity, being tied to choice, choosing, and being tied to insistence, that we are insisting on choosing to be unrelentingly positive and seeing things, deliberately perceiving the more. And that, when we choose to see that there is more, if choice creates reality, we are creating the more by deliberately perceiving it. So that was a really interesting one. And I pulled a quote out that it doesn't take much to transform the world we perceive. And that's such a simple.
Say that again, please.
It doesn't take much to transform the world we perceive.
I'll pop it in chat for me real quick.
That was something from the slides, or from the audio. That I
don't remember that. I really don't remember that.
Yeah, that was in the audio somewhere, and it was, to me, that's a really simple concept at the surface, but it's a really powerful one tied to that deliberate perception, that when we
Well, it's becoming your quote now. Sorry.
when we start deliberately perceiving our reality, we are able to transform the world. We're able to transform our
Correct.
reality when we deliberately perceive it.
Yes.
So that
Yes.
was a
Yes.
really
Oh, say that last part again.
when we deliberately perceive our reality, we transform our world.
Right. Oh, I thought you said we begin to untangle it.
Well, I may have said something similar, but yeah.
Right. When we deliberately perceive our world, we begin to untangle it. That's what I thought I heard you say.
Yeah, I don't think I said it quite like that, but I like it. That sounds good.
All right. Well, then we'll attribute that quote to you instead then.
I like it.
And this was a module 7, session 1.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Keep going, keep going, keep going. That's really powerful to me. I mean, all the stuff is very magical.
And then insisting that there's always a solution for every problem was a really interesting point to me. And basically, we just need to have the awareness to see that there is a solution.
Exactly. Exactly.
That was a big
Exactly. Very good, Jayne, on that point and tying it to your previous point.
Yes.
All right. We have understood that we can affect and change our reality to small degrees.
Mm-hmm.
Wouldn't changing the greater reality simply be a matter of energy?
I would think so. Yeah.
Yeah. If you can do a little bit, what requires more? You need more energy. You need more personal power to do more. Right?
Say it again, please,
so,
sir.
Say again?
Just repeat this, what you were saying.
All right. So we can affect our reality around us, and it's a function of our energy. I mean, just take your mood. You're in a high mood, you affect everybody's mood around you, and you're changing your reality in some way. But even in a more literal say, you were saying that when we deliberately perceive, we learn to untangle our reality. So if you just take it, that's why I like that untangling. You definitely use the word untangling. How you said it, I don't know, but untangling. We learn to untangle our reality. Untangling is the most minutest little fraction, you could say, of starting to shape and materialize your reality, right? You start with untangling. If you can untangle even a little bit, then you're changing it, right?
And it makes more sense.
Right. So I'm saying is that it's a function of energy or power, how much you can untangle. Now, untangling is a very basic thing. To style it, to shape it, to grow it, that takes a different kind of power. The more comprehensive you get, it's just simply a matter of more power. But when that statement, I'm connecting this to, you said we can solve any problem.
Right.
At root, whatever the problem is, I just redescribe the whole world. If I have the maximum power,
right.
That's my solution. Change the paradigm, change the underlying problem, and it's solved. Right? Eliminate the problem, and you don't need to find a solution. If you can change your reality, you see, you just eliminate the problem in your reality. You shift the reality elements. Yeah. So this is why your statement is so huge, because it's the starting point of a process that we're on.
Right.
How much is a function of energy. You see now the core necessity for impeccability.
Right. Absolutely.
Because we don't have unlimited energy. We have limited amounts of it. And we need to be misers. We need to be impeccable with that energy so we don't waste it.
Right.
Why? Why are we inherently lazy?
Energy management.
Because exactly, energy seeks to conserve itself, right? Now, if you're an energy being and you give away a bit of your energy, what happens? You've diminished yourself a bit.
Right.
Right? So it's not that we are lazy. We just don't like to do. Laziness by definition is doing something that you don't think warrants the reward for the investment.
Right. True.
Right?
True.
Right. So of course we want to be lazy. We need to be lazy. It's very important, because if we are doing something that doesn't bring us something in return, we are actually diminishing ourselves. We're actually killing ourselves.
Right.
Right? you're not getting extra energy from it. So we can only impeccably invest our energy ever.
Mm-hmm.
Right? I mean, it's like giving away money just for nothing. It's like throwing away money. You see, when you're being lazy, that's the same thing. You're asking me to make an effort for something that's not giving me a return on that investment. It's like throwing away money. I'm killing myself, in other words. So laziness is a prime survival instinct. Very important. But this point, though, of changing every problem is solvable, it's just a matter of energy.
Right.
That's it.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Okay, I am so sorry, but I am gonna have to go because
No problem. No problem. So that quote is, again, when we perceive deliberately, right? When we perceive deliberately, we begin to untangle the world.
Right. Yeah.
I love that concept of untangling the world. And I think it's when we learn to perceive deliberately, we begin to untangle the world.
Right. Yeah.
You know, put both of them in there. Okay. All right. All right.
That should definitely be a Celerica quote because I think.
All right. All right. We'll do a Celerica. Untangle. All right. All right. We'll put it as Celerica then. All right. I like that. I like that. SYLL. There we go. Celerica. I love it. I love it. So, all right. I've got it. I'll find nice graphics to go with it, just so you can see it up there. It's in bold for whatever reason. I don't know why, but okay, I'll leave it in bold. So, all right, Erica. We'll be around if you do get a chance to come back later. Beena and I are going to be here for a while still, and nobody's on else today. So if you do feel like coming back, just pop right back on again. No problem.
All right. Well, thank you both.
Fantastic. I love it. I love it, Erica. All right. See you tomorrow. I'm so looking forward to it. I want to continue this tomorrow. Very keen. Very keen. Yeah.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye, marvelous Erica. Bye-bye. 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 All right. Stop sharing. Let's end recording.